Welcome, everybody, and welcome to our really exciting story sharing for today. I'm so excited to get to host this one from my friend Edgar Castro Tello. Do you want to say hi, Edgar?
Hi everyone. Hi Emma.
So, for any of you that doesn't know me, I'm Emma Cooksey. I'm the sleep apnea program manager here at Project Sleep. And I'm also a graduate of the Rising Voices program, which Edgar just went through to prepare this presentation. So I can't recommend it enough to anybody watching that's thinking about sharing their voice and their story to try and bring more awareness around sleep disorders. So, a couple of housekeeping things before we get started. So, if you're tuning in live on YouTube right now, go ahead and in the chat, let us know where you're joining from. So, I'm in St. Augustine, Florida, and Edgar's also in Florida, which we'll hear about. But if you're from outside the country, let us know which country. And if you're in the United States, let us know the city and state. We love to see where people are watching from. Another thing is we love it when people share, like, and comment just because it gets our message to more people and it just lets us expand our community. The other thing was, oh yeah, it's really important to know that this is a public video, so the live is public, but also the video stays on YouTube after today, and the video and all of the live chat will stay with the video. So don't share anything on in our chat that you're not comfortable sharing publicly with anybody that might be watching the video. And as with everything that we do at Project Sleep, there's no medical advice. Everything we do is for educational purposes and also to empower people in our community. So if anything that we talk about today raises questions in your own mind about your own sleep health and you have questions, you can bring those to your medical team and ask them. So I'm going to do a quick bio to introduce Edgar, and then we're going to hand it over to Edgar. So Edgar Castro Tello is a waste diversion and environmental professional living in Tampa, Florida. Though his symptoms started in high school, he was diagnosed with severe obstructive sleep apnea at the age of 25 and now raises awareness for others. As a speaker with Project Sleep's Rising Voices program, Edgar shares his story of diagnosis, resilience, and adjustment in hopes of helping others navigate their sleep health effectively. So I should also mention anybody joining us live, you can put any questions you have for Edgar in the chat and I'll pop off while Edgar's doing his presentation and then I'll be back at the end. We can do a bit of a Q&A. So without further ado, I'm going to hand it over to you, Edgar, and I'm so excited to hear your story.
I'm excited too. Thank you, Emma. Hi everyone. Thank you for tuning in and watching me to share my story. I am very excited to be able to uh, share some of the details about how my story has continued and evolved. Um, well, again, I'm Edgar Castro Tello, and one of the one of the honors of doing this is I want to acknowledge that my my connection to Project Sleep is uh, largely being able to work with Emma, and this is a full circle moment, and I'm really proud and honored to be able to do this with you, Emma. So thank you, and thank you, Project Sleep, of course. So I grew up in the country of Venezuela. I was born in 1990. There I am with my dad on the left, uh, and then up there with my mom and my older brother. So I'm the little one right there next to that fireplace. And I grew up in a city called Maracay, Venezuela, not to be confused with Maracaibo. Um, but I grew up in a beautiful setting amongst the mountains, a lot of lush green vegetation, and I grew up with an affinity for nature, for animals. Already at an early age, I was really interested in the environment. Um, And my family loved to take the opportunity to travel, explore. The picture with my mom and my brother, that was a little German village that was located in the mountains near our city in Venezuela. And that was one of our favorite vacation spots. So we always really enjoy traveling and exploring together. And then in 1999, my parents took us on the largest adventure of all, uh, the 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 largest, I guess, move that you could ever think of, which was moving to an entirely new, different country. We moved to the United States in 1999, and that's where I I had my adolescent years in Miami, Florida. So going through middle school and high school uh, was an exciting time to be in Miami, Florida, such a large city, learning English, learning about how to live in a new country and getting to make new friends while also trying to discover myself. And starting in high school, uh, there were some there were some experiences I started to have as a teenager. We all know that teenagers can sometimes get a bad rep for like being lazy or not wanting to do much. In my case, it wasn't by choice. I was just exhausted. There was a specific time um, as a freshman in high school. I was so new to all of this workload, um, taking advanced like honors classes or AP classes was a new thing to me. I was exhausted going through school. And there was one time specifically that I got home from school and I was gonna take a nap. So let's say I got home, I think it was like 3:15 p.m. High school would let out at 2:30. And I would lay down to take a nap and I did not wake up all the way until after dinner. Now, my parents, they were very trusting of me and my ability to manage my own homework and to stay on top of things. I had proved to them that I was able to at least like self-manage and get my things done, get good grades. So they knew that if I was taking a nap, to just let him sleep, he'll wake up later and he's going to do his homework. But this one time, I remember specifically, it really affected how I saw myself. They never called me lazy. And that wasn't a word that they called me, and they just respected me. But I felt lazy. I felt exhausted. I felt tired. The fact that I would have to get home from school at 3 p.m., take a nap all the way until like past dinner. Sometimes there would be like a meal or a plate waiting for me in the microwave that was just for me because they knew that I was going to wake up late, eat, and then I would do my homework late in the night. So being in high school and waking up at 6 a.m. to go to high school was already not fun for any high schooler. But waking up at 6 a.m., dark in the morning, and then feeling still brain foggy, exhausted, and tired, it started to make me feel inadequate. And in high school, I created I was very lucky that we created like a group of friends. We would hang out a lot. We would go on trips together and like little day trips and explore Miami and go to the beach. And that was really great. But anytime it came to having a sleepover, I also felt inadequate. I felt judged. Um, so my senior year in high school, which was 2009, after we graduated in 2009, I was 18 at this time. We all decided to take a trip to Orlando to go to a resort and celebrate that we graduated high school. And up to then, it wasn't as bad, but up to then at that point, I didn't know just how much it affected my friends to be sleeping in the same room with me during a sleepover, or if I ever just fell asleep um, with them. But this one trip, I was on a sleeping bag, sleeping on the floor, and the number of times that they woke me up was an exuberant amount. And I just felt shame. I felt so bad that I was the one keeping my friends from resting. And we were all crammed into a hotel room. There was like 8 of us, and we were just like some on the sofa bed, some on an actual bed, some on the floor. We were having fun. We were really young and just trying to enjoy our time. But My snoring kept my friends up. And so that made me feel ashamed. And the snoring kept going all the way into college. I didn't go to college right away. As an undocumented student at that point, it was really challenging for me to find a firm track to go to university. It was really expensive. I would have had to have gone with out of state tuition, and that wasn't feasible for me. So I did need to work a little bit after graduating in 2009. But at the time, 2012 came around, I did work on my associates little by little in local community college, and I had this amazing privilege to go to UCF. Um, so I was getting in touch with my environmental side. I was very lucky that what I liked as a child was something that I still wanted to pursue. Sustainability, gardening, learning a lot about environmental regulation and policy. And it was truly fantastic to be able to be at UCF. I did move up to Orlando with my ex David at the time, and we lived together and we went to school together. And during this time at UCF, I actually went to a sleeping workshop. They had like free resources for students to stay healthy, active. Um, Sometimes I would, go to the gym and do the free classes that they had. But they had a specific workshop that was for sleep health. And and up to this point, my ex David would tell me that like, hey, you're snoring a lot. You're snoring a lot, and you're kind of not breathing well when you sleep. But to me, that was just like, okay, well, maybe I'm just sleeping wrong. Maybe I'm just not adjusting well when I sleep. But I was a really bad sleeper. I was moving around a lot. The sheets would get tossed everywhere. The pillows would get tossed everywhere. I wasn't sleeping peacefully. Um, so there were a lot of questions and concerns that my ex David would bring to me, and I would kind of blow them off because I also didn't have direct access to healthcare. Without health insurance or proper documentation, I just didn't want to have to pay the exuberant amounts it took to see somebody in healthcare. It was very challenging. But this workshop that was at UCF, they kind of covered some basic stuff of like, hey, if you're gonna go to bed before an exam, don't drink, don't smoke, don't do this, don't stay up late. Just kind of the basic stuff that sleep hygiene kind of dictates. Um, but I thought that I was this close. Looking back at it now, I was this close. I could have been in an alternate timeline to where I could have heard specific words that would have uh, encouraged me to do more research about what my experience um, was. I could have seen those same things that were happening to me reflected and being talked about, but that wasn't the case. So that moment came and went. I finally graduated in 2014 from UCF, and I I had a little bit of like an employment gap. I was looking for work, and I'm like, okay, I want to use my degree. So finally, at the end of uh, towards September of 2015, I landed my first environmental consulting job, which is the picture on the right here, which is also a full circle moment because that is the Raymond James Stadium here in Tampa. So before I even lived in Tampa, I got to work on doing site assessments and environmental audits for a project on the stadium. And now I live right by it, and it's pretty cool. But uh, a part of this job, a huge component of this job was driving long distances. And it was very demanding, where in one day I would log into work and then I would have to be in Atlanta by nighttime sometimes, or by the very next day, early in the morning. Um, so a story about my first time in St. Augustine, which is where Emma lives here in Florida. My first time in St. Augustine was uh, a drive that I was taking from Miami to Jacksonville, which sometimes it's like 6 to 7 ish hours, depending on how fast you drive. And there was a moment where I was driving on I-95 and I had just passed Daytona. And this was happening a lot to me, but this one time, scared me the most. I was driving on I-95 and I had a moment where I blurred, kind of just blurred out. My my existence in the car was on autopilot. I had my hands on the wheel and I just kept looking forward with deadpan eyes, just trying to stay where I was. And it wasn't until like many miles later that I kind of snapped back into alertness, into into me, and that scared me because it kept happening more and more. And I decided in that moment that I don't want to feel like this when I'm driving long distances. It's dangerous. So I decided to get off in St. Augustine. And eventually I would go back to St. Augustine and actually see it much better. But this time I stopped in and I decided to walk around and I told my supervisors, hey, I'm exhausted. I'm tired. I don't want to keep driving. I'm going to stay here. And that's how I actually made my first trip to St. Augustine, was me coming to an alertness moment where I was too scared to keep going. And those lack of judgment or like lack of sort of like active consciousness were starting to scare me. That and the fact that I was ready to fall asleep at any moment when I was driving. And that's not something that I wanted to entertain at all. So as I was continuing to work for this environmental consulting firm throughout the rest of fall of 2015, my family, they wanted to go to Colorado in December. Um, and by the time December came around, I was 25 years old at the end of December. My birthday's in early December. So by then, it's always kind of like a nice holiday trip, and my mom loves Colorado, and we went to the city of Breckenridge, Colorado, up in the mountains in the Rockies. So up on the left, you'll see my dad, my mom. I'm there with a smile, but I was not feeling well. So that smile is very deceiving. Um, but Breckenridge, Colorado is at an elevation of 12,000 feet. I did not know I was putting my body in a pressure cooker, and I was not prepared for what was going to happen this first day. Um, so as I was walking around this first day, just kind of like, oh, are we going to snowboard? No, I straight up said I'm not snowboarding. I had snowboarded before in another family trip that we had done in high school. This time I said, I am not snowboarding. I am exhausted. I am tired. And there was a slight headache coming on, and it was increasingly becoming bigger and bigger. So I was getting so exhausted that we were taking frequent breaks. I was like, here, let's go in here. Let's drink a hot chocolate. Let's drink a hot cider. Um, or let's go into this oxygen bar because I feel like we need it. Okay, we need more oxygen. Let me acclimate to it. Let me see what I can do. By the time the evening came around, we had dinner. I was still exhausted. I was very tired, and my headache was now um, worse than it was earlier. I was drinking plenty of water. I was eating well, and by this time, I couldn't even fake a smile. I was not feeling good. So at that point, we thought perhaps a good night's rest might be what I need. The goods, the night's rest never came. We got to our hotel. Um, I tried to fall asleep, and I did fall asleep. The problem was about 20 minutes later, 15 to 20 minutes later, um, I wake up feeling like somebody is choking me. Somebody is wringing my neck. There's this collapse that happened in my throat where I could not breathe. I woke up in an intense panic where I couldn't breathe. I just was having a hard time actually trying to get air to flow into me, and it was not happening. And I was in and out of consciousness at this point. All I felt was pain. My head was throbbing. My muscles were starting to kind of ache. And I made the mistake of not telling anyone at first. I just went back to sleep. And the second time, the way that I recall this memory is it's Freddy Krueger is killing me in my sleep. If I fall asleep, I wake up worse, or I may not even wake up at all. And I once again fell asleep. And then I woke up again, gasping for air. Even worse this time, my head was throbbing again with pain. My body was starting to ache. I was starting to feel nauseous. I was starting to really feel disoriented, in and out of consciousness. And I that's when I yelled out for my parents who were in a separate room. I yelled out for them, for the rest of my family. My brother was there too, but I yelled out for all of them. And that's when they saw me not feeling well and looking. I didn't know exactly how I looked, but I know that when your mom or your dad sees you in whatever position I was in, they did not take that lightly. And they took me straight to the car, and they said, "We're going to take you to the emergency room," which is the emergency room is at the hospital, right there on the bottom left. Um, and for them, driving at night in the snow was really nerve wracking. They had to pull over several times for me to like try to get fresh air. I still couldn't breathe, even though I was awake. I couldn't breathe well. My throat was collapsed in, and I was really having a hard time retaining air. They pulled over. I threw up a couple of times. My body was not doing so good. Um, and when we got into the emergency room, um, and I went into triage, they were measuring my oxygen levels, and my oxygen levels had dropped to the 60s, to the low 60s. Um, that alarmed them. That was that they usually they said that they usually get people that have like low oxygen, or they are not used to the altitude, but this was something more. This was something else that was hiding underneath all of the regular things that people might experience up there. Um, once they saw inside of my throat, they saw that it was inflamed, that it was agitated, it was irritated, and they hooked me up to oxygen right away. Once I was breathing some of that pure oxygen, I was feeling good enough to be able to move. But they basically told me that now you cannot stay here. You cannot stay here another day. You need to go back down to Denver, and you need to get an oxygen tank. So the middle photo there is my family packing around me as I'm sitting there with an oxygen tank, trying to stay calm, trying to not exert a lot of energy so I could keep breathing normally. So they're packing, they're making sure that everything, this was our first day in this trip, and we had kind of unpacked, but not that much. So it wasn't too much. But um, this emergency basically led to me not being able to ignore any of these other things that have been happening to me. Um, and uh, and then once I got back home, it was time to address all of the things that the emergency room staff had mentioned. So testing and immediate treatment was my priority. And at this point, because of the job that I had, I finally did have reliable health insurance, and this was uh, the time that I needed to use it. Now, sleep apnea is a serious sleep disorder that occurs when a person's breathing is interrupted during sleep. People with untreated sleep apnea stop breathing repeatedly during their sleep, sometimes hundreds of times a night. This means the brain and the rest of the body may not get enough oxygen. Due to this lack of oxygen, sleep apnea increases the risk of serious and even life threatening health conditions such as stroke, heart disease, high blood pressure, diabetes, and depression. Sleep apnea affects people to varying degrees and can be mild, moderate, or severe. According to a 2014 publication by the American Academy of Sleep Medicine, 25% or more of adults may be affected by sleep apnea to some degree. Now, symptoms may vary by person and may include sleepiness or lack of energy during the day and or while driving, even after a full night's sleep. You might not be aware of it, but your breathing problems may wake you several times during the night. Um, so for me, having that restless sleep, um, just not just moving around and not being comfortable, um, and then the my lack of energy during high school and even after was very much tied to this. There's also loud snoring. It might come and go throughout the night and be loud enough to wake others near you. You may also occasionally wake up suddenly with a choking or gasping sensation. Yes, loud snoring, um, just just like the times that I had sleepovers with my friends, my snoring continues to be loud to this day, and I it's something that I acknowledge and I know I work on, but that is one of the ones that I experienced. Disrupted nighttime sleep, including restless sleep, repeated awakenings, or insomnia. Um, so again, when I was a teenager, sleeping was not a calm sort of activity. I was jostling and rustling with my sheets, and sometimes everything would end up on the floor, and I would have to pick them up at the end. I was just not resting well. It was not good for me. Um, Morning headaches and or dizziness. Scientists aren't sure why people with sleep apnea get these. It might be because of poor sleep or a lack of oxygen caused by the breathing problems. Um, so in high school, it started to happen to me. I would wake up and I would already have a headache, and the day wouldn't even start. Um, and that was very common for me all throughout high school and college. Waking up with a sore throat or dry throat or dry mouth. This happens because apnea often causes you to breathe through your mouth. In my case, that's very accurate. I am a mouth breather, and I do uh, from the snoring, I do get uh, sore throats, um, and it was happening very constantly too. And then nightmares. Some research has found a link between apnea and bad dreams, but more research is needed. One of the things that was happening to me during college was during that time, as my symptoms started getting a little bit more profound, I was also experiencing recurring nightmares. And to this day, I have the same recurring nightmare, which is uh, I show up for a college lecture, only I'm showing up for it on the day of the final. And I have no recollection of showing up to any of the classes before that. And my anxiety and peace levels are my peace is gone by the time I wake up from this dream. And that is a recurring dream I have to this day. And it started around college. And it's always a math class for some reason. So now, the last one is cognitive and mental health impacts. Anxiety and depression are very common in people with sleep apnea, and lack of sleep can lead to forgetfulness, brain fog, and mood swings. Um, so my driving abilities with my job were really testing my cognitive skills. I felt unsafe, and I needed to give myself those necessary breaks in order to keep going. Since I was ready to just fall asleep at any moment, and I wanted to make sure I was as alert as I could be when I was driving, but it was not possible with my condition. Obstructive sleep apnea, or OSA, the more common of the two forms of apnea, is caused by a blockage of the airway. usually when the soft tissue in the back of the throat collapses during sleep. Then there's central sleep apnea. Unlike obstructive sleep apnea and central sleep apnea, the airway is not blocked, but the brain fails to signal the muscles to breathe due to instability in the respiratory control center. Now, my diagnosis is severe obstructive sleep apnea. Now, medical providers can diagnose sleep apnea using in-lab sleep study, which typically includes measuring brain waves, heart rate, breathing, and movement to determine a diagnosis. Sleep apnea can also be diagnosed using a home sleep apnea test, which allows you to sleep at home while a small monitor collects data. I was fortunate to be able to do both. Now, various positive airway pressure, or PAP or PAP, devices such as CPAP, AutoPAP, or BiPAP are prescribed to push air into the airway and keep it open at night. Oral appliances are made by dentists who specialize in sleep dentistry. These devices prevent your airway from collapsing by holding your tongue in a position or by sliding your jaw forward. These are good alternative for people with mild or moderate sleep apnea, but generally not recommended for severe cases like mine. For some people, the anatomical structure of their airway is a factor, and surgery to move the jaws forward and increase the width of the airway can resolve sleep apnea. An implanted device that stimulates the tongue to keep it clear of the airway is another surgical option for some people with sleep apnea. Wakefulness medications are sometimes prescribed to people with excessive daytime sleepiness if they are using a CPAP every night as recommended. For some people, a large weight gain can be a cause of sleep apnea, and for those people, weight loss can improve or eradicate their symptoms. More research is needed, but other therapies people with sleep apnea find helpful include myofunctional therapy, positional therapy, and even didgeridoo playing. Now, uh, to in order to cope with living with sleep apnea, or using a device like a CPAP, um, I I cope with being able to communicate with my family. I cope with being able to air those concerns with my partner now, Frankie. He has been a huge rock for me in trying to come to terms with my sleep apnea. Um, so after my diagnosis in early 2016, which was right after that Colorado trip in 2015, since 2016, I've done the mental work to accept it, to not feel ashamed of my sleep apnea, but to make sure that I am doing what it takes to get a good night's sleep every time. Um, Also, trying not to place, I'm trying not to place pressure on myself about uh, about my diet, my 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 body shape. Although I try to make sure I find improvements in those areas. One of the things that I do is that I treat my CPAP machine as a permanent thing in my life, and that brings me comfort, um, because it helps me navigate my life, knowing that I have to make sure that this condition is always taken care of. Now, whenever I discuss sleep apnea with people, I try to make sure to moderate exactly what it is that they're saying back to me. It's always a good reminder that talking about my sleep apnea, it's not an invitation for people to talk about my body weight or my shape. Sometimes I'll get questions like, "Oh, have you tried losing weight? Have you tried doing this?" And in my case, it's severe obstructive sleep apnea. So yeah, so some of those things could help, um, but in my case, it's really more complex than that. And I I want to make sure that I navigate my life, not ignoring the signs. As you heard from my story, kind of not knowing what those signs meant, not having somebody else really question it, and then me not paying attention to those warnings um, put me in a dangerous position. It was dangerous to neglect those symptoms. Um, but now, as you see on the left here, I enjoy playing volleyball and pickleball every week. I love waking up uh, on a weekend morning and making lattes with my partner Frankie there in the pink glasses. I get to do great work in my community as an environmental professional, either talking about compost or going to uh, facility to come up with new programs, and I don't take it for granted for one moment. And all of the treatment and all of the information has led me to this place where I can do the things that I enjoy doing. And in the future, I hope to I know that I will continue to travel with my family. I I see us getting to visit more countries and uh, explore together, just like they would love to do with us when we were little. But now it's on a grander scale. We had the amazing opportunity to visit Italy and Spain, and I want to do more of that. And I'm ready for more of that to be aware, alert, and more energized. I also look forward to being able to raise more awareness and to work with an amazing group of people that that will bring more light to education and outreach on sleep disorders. And then I want to continue exploring nature here in my own backyard, trying to take photos of all the little things and all the big things all at once. Ooh, I think I skipped one. There we go. Now, because of myths and misperceptions surrounding sleep apnea, many people with this serious sleep disorder have not been diagnosed or received treatment. One study showed an average of a 7-year delay between the time a person with sleep apnea recognizes one or more symptoms and when they receive a referral for a sleep study. You do not have to be older, male, or have a larger body in order to have sleep apnea. You don't even have to snore. Anyone, including children and young adults, can be affected. So my symptoms started when I was in late middle school, early high school, and it wasn't until I was 25 that I got my diagnosis. Um, so it took me a while to get there, but I'm glad I got there. It was a scary experience to be in Breckenridge and feel like I was put under a magnifying glass where all of the symptoms were going to happen at once like that. Um, and that's really, that was a learning moment. It was a lesson, but I wouldn't want that to happen to anybody else. So I hope that um, others get to hear this story and that that doesn't happen to them. And it is estimated that 1 in 5 people are living with a sleep disorder. There are a wide variety of sleep disorders, and symptoms can be hard to detect. If you have questions about your own sleep, personalized support and resources are available through Project Sleep Helpline, a free national helpline for people facing sleep issues and sleep disorders. So, with that, I am sharing my story today as a part of Rising Voices, a program of the nonprofit organization Project Sleep, which empowers patient advocates to share their stories and improve public understanding on sleep disorders. And so thank you very much from the bottom of my heart for listening to my story. And I guess we will continue our conversation now, Emma.
Thank you so much. Yay. You did such a great job. So I think you can stop shit. Yeah, you already did it. Okay.
Well
Um,
done.
so yeah, thank you so much for sharing all of that story with us. It's so great to hear parts of your story, like I've heard it before, but parts of it I had forgotten. So that was really wonderful. Um, so I'm just checking. I've got the setup that has a side by side. I think I do now.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so I
Yeah,
have
we're side by
all
side.
sorts of questions for you. Thank you so much to the people that were in the chat during that. So we had people tuning in from Florida, from Virginia, from Texas, and from California. So that was really great to see people, and a lot of people were sharing how much what you talked about in your story resonated with them, especially around, these feelings of drowsy driving, and the way that you explained that was so perfect. Like, because of where I live, I know exactly what you're talking about I-95, and I've had
Yeah,
before my diagnosis, I had the same situation where I was dealing with drowsy driving as well, and it's terrifying. So
yeah. It's
yeah,
a busy stretch of highway too. The entire
yeah.
I-95. It's
Yeah, for sure. So I've got so many questions. So one of the things that I thought was so great that you highlighted was you talked about actually going to a sleep seminar. I think you said workshop. While
yeah,
you were you in college at that point?
yeah. I was at UCF. Yep.
Yeah, and so I think like what I'm always really interested in with working at Project Sleep is how to reach undiagnosed people and to reach them more quickly. So I went undiagnosed with severe obstructive sleep apnea for 10 years. And I often consider like what would have made the difference? What would I have, said, oh, that's me. I need to go to a doctor to
Mm-hmm.
ask questions about that. So it seemed like they mainly talked about sleep hygiene. So you think if they'd kind of gone that extra mile and talked a little bit about like common sleep disorders, and these are the symptoms, and take those to
Yeah,
your doctor kind of thing, do you think that would have moved the needle for you?
yeah. If they had mentioned like if you're snoring a lot, if your partner's telling you that you're waking up not breathing well, um, that would have been something would have been like, hey, somebody in my life tells me that. Let me go up and ask them a question specifically about that, and then see if they had any resources. But I really think they were covering just the basics for this workshop.
Yeah, I think sleepy teens as well, the way that you described going to high school, coming back, and having to nap and do your homework and sleep, and I think there are so many teenagers dealing with that, and it does come back to this kind of shame around like feeling lazy. I think you said that your family didn't call you that, but like did that come up, like feelings of like why can't I get it together, or this is my fault that I'm sleeping too much almost?
I thought, yeah, I really thought it was self-inflicted. Like I'm the one choosing to go to sleep after school. I'm the one choosing to sleep all the way till like 10 p.m. at night. I'm the one choosing to wake up late and do my homework into like 1 a.m. and then continue to sleep until 6 a.m. at my alarm for the bus. And so I started to really just reflect it as like I'm doing this to myself. Because like I said, my parents really trusted me to do the things that I needed to do. They didn't need to check anything for me, and I was pretty good at maintaining my grades. But
Yeah.
yeah, I think for a lot of I guess for myself, it feels like any other symptoms were kind of hiding underneath the notion that like teens are sleepy, they're always tired. It might be true in some cases, but in my case, it was hiding in plain sight, in a way.
And I think that just to explain to people tuning in, when you were talking in your story about being in Colorado and having your oxygen dip into the 60s, I think sometimes people don't realize that oxygen levels, it's not like a passing grade, right? Like if it's below, if your oxygen dips below the 90s, that's really, you need to urgently address that. So to have your oxygen dipping into the 60s is really terrifying.
Yeah, I didn't know like how grand or like how
Yeah.
grave that was. I still have that report with me. Like I have all of that paperwork from that hospital visit. And sometimes I even look at that number and I think, was that the night that I almost died? Like was it that close? And
Yeah.
60 just seems like a fiction to me whenever I hear of other cases and other stories.
hmm It's yeah. I feel as though like just to let everybody watching know, and I loved your kind words at the beginning, like and the feelings mutual about our relationship over the years. But I feel as though when I first interviewed you for my podcast back in the day, years ago, um, you were talking about, oh, I've just totally lost my train of thought because I have like fog.
So
Um,
many thoughts
I know. I'm like, oh, what was that? Um, you were talking about being in Colorado, and now I can't remember what I was going to say. I'm so sorry.
about when we did our interview for back in, I think it was 2020.
Yeah.
Was that where you were
Yeah, there was
in that?
something about it that I didn't really realize until you shared it today, and now I can't think what it was. I'm sure we'll come back.
It'll come
Um,
back, yeah.
so I think the other thing that was really interesting. Oh, we just had a really lovely comment where someone was saying it's so great to hear that I'm not alone in my symptoms, which is really nice and why we do this, right?
Yeah, that's why. That's
Um,
why.
yeah. So yeah, the other thing I was gonna mention was just that we got to work together on Project Sleep Apnea Let's Face It campaign earlier this year. And so what did you think when I called you up and said, "Hey, do you want to do you want to be part of this awareness campaign where you were going to share your story publicly in video and on social media? Did you have any hesitation about doing that, or did you just think I want to reach as many people as possible and let me get involved?"
No, yeah, there was no hesitation whatsoever. My bags were packed the minute you asked, and um, that there really is value in seeing and representation and seeing different stories. So sometimes that's what somebody needs. If somebody needs to see themselves reflected in one way or another, um, then that's important. And so the fact that so many advocates were able to post and share and to raise awareness again, like I mentioned earlier, like people are discussing more. They're being more open about talking about sleep disorders and sleep concerns and hygiene.
Yeah.
Um,
I think so
so no, I'm
too. I
glad to
mean,
be
I
a
think
part of it and to keep going.
yeah, I think that there's definitely been an uptick in interest in sleep. I think that yeah, putting your story out there. I mean, obviously, this is my whole job, but I just think it's so important, like you said, that people see themselves represented. Because so often I hear people who kind of know deep down they have all these symptoms, but they're not seeking help because they're thinking like someone like me couldn't have that. It's like I, as a young woman, was kind of being told by doctors, like, oh, we don't normally see that in, like you were mentioning, like, oftentimes people are looking at older, overweight men, and that kind of misses out a whole bunch of people who are dealing with this as well. So yeah, and the other thing that you were mentioning, which I loved, was this idea of talking about your sleep apnea is not an invitation for people to comment on your body and your size. And that's something that I feel as though like all of us living with sleep apnea come across, like whether it's on social media or even in person, like people can just even if they're coming from what they think is a helpful place, they think
Yeah,
that, they can be like, well, you only have that because, you're overweight or
yeah,
whatever. When, I have sleep apnea, I've had sleep apnea for decades, like at all different weights. And also it's just kind of a bit personal. And so I really appreciated you mentioning that. It was,
yeah.
yeah, it's a good deal.
Yeah, I also relate to that. Like I had the symptoms when I was at my most active, or a completely different body shape than what I have now.
Yeah.
And the same sleep apnea has been there. So it's
Yeah.
it's more complex than that. Yeah.
Yeah. Tell us a little bit about, I know that oftentimes people don't realize that sleep apnea, there can be a hereditary factor where it can run in families. So to the extent that you're comfortable, did your diagnosis come before other family members or how did that come about?
I was the trailblazer in my family, and
Yeah.
I know that they would be they I think eventually I'm going to recruit them to be a part of, like, maybe like a family panel. But after I had been with my CPAP machine for 6 years, then my dad got diagnosed with sleep apnea, and then my brother also got diagnosed with sleep apnea. And my brother is a gym rat. He did karate. He did all of the active things. I was the artsy one. He was the athletic one. But he was shocked and surprised because he is such a health nut, and he loves going to the gym and staying in a certain shape. And yeah, so now in my family, it's 3 out of 4. Um, and looking back with my dad, he was a loud snorer, but they learned from me, and we now talk. When I go down and visit, I don't even need to bring my distilled water because they already have some.
They've already got some. I love it. Well, you were definitely the trailblazer for sure. Okay, so do we have anything else that we haven't covered that you wanted to cover?
No, I mean, just it's been just so wonderful to talk with others. It's really helped with my mental health, overall, because when we first chatted in 2020, I was in a darker place with facing my sleep apnea. I was fighting it so hard. I was feeling ashamed. um, Frankie and I had sleeping issues because of my machine. I was still, like, moving around too much. Um, but doing all of this work these past few years and being able to feel empowered through hearing others and talking to you and talking to everyone through Project Sleep, which has been incredible. I now feel so much more powerful,
Yeah.
uh, to share and to be able to use this, as it's a normal thing that happens to people. We have to normalize it, and I'm not going to attach any stigma to it. So that's been my main goal recently, and it's been working pretty well. So thank you for the opportunity, as always.
Yeah, my pleasure. And so I did just want to thank you so much, Edgar. We appreciate you so much.
Thank
And
you.
I loved hearing your story again today. So for anybody who is watching, whether you're live or watching the replay, if you want to learn more about Project Sleep, the website is project-sleep.com. And that's the place to go for everything we talked about. So there's a whole section about Rising Voices, which is the program Edgar just completed to share his story as a patient advocate. There's also some information there about my program, so Sleep Apnea Squad. And you're going to want to go and find Sleep Apnea Squad on the website. You can sign up for email and be up to date on everything we're doing. We create free resources to help people living with sleep apnea. And then also our awareness campaign, you can get involved. It's called Sleep Apnea, Let's Face It. And again, project-sleep.com. So we're going to wind up now. And thank you everybody for tuning in live. We really appreciate it. And we'll see you next time.